This is the heartbeat of human services, a peek into the inspiring stories of our community and all things DHS. Join us.
Hi, everybody. I'm Janice Slagle, your host for the DHS podcast, The Heartbeat of Human Services. And today my guest is this is Foster Care Awareness Month, and my guest is Allison McClain, founder and director of the Bakersfield Angels, which we were just saying it's a national organization, right?
Yes, correct. It's a local chapter of a national nonprofit that started in Austin, and now there are 21 chapters throughout the United States,
21.
But we are the only one in California, so we're super proud of that.
Well, welcome to our show. I am so happy to have you, Allison, and I just have to say, when I hear you talk about what you do with your angels and with the foster care community, it's really inspiring. So thank you for stepping up and seeing a need and just going for it. So really thank you for that.
Well, thank you. And I appreciate what you've done to kind of propel us and open the doors and pull a seat up to the table. It means a whole lot.
Well, we're all in it together. Yep. So tell me, when did you start the Bakersfield Angels locally?
Yep. So a little over 4 years ago, is that true? Yes, 4 years ago, I heard a podcast with Susan Ramirez, who is the CEO of National Angels. And she was on a podcast just talking about statistics surrounding kiddos in foster care. And I was just really shocked. I just didn't know that. I have an adopted brother of my own, and I know his individual experience, but I didn't realize how that just plays out in so many different lives, just growing up with often a sense of abandonment or feeling forgotten or whatever. And so when I just heard about the outcomes for kids that age out of foster care if they never find their forever family, which include, homelessness and incarceration and often teenage pregnancy, sex trafficking, poverty, most likely. And so I just thought, surely, I could do something here in my own community. So I just decided to throw my hat in the ring, get in the arena and get a little dirty and beat up and just see, if I could maybe create a little bit of a ripple and make a difference. I'd spent the majority of my life in church ministry, which is an incredible thing to do, but I spent most of my life blessing blessed people. And so I thought, what does it look like to maybe reach a little onto the outskirts and spend some of my time for maybe the less thought, those that are not thought of as often, maybe those that are forgotten. And how can I use my platform and my influence to create change in our community?
I love that. And I remember when I first met you, and it was a little bumpy start because you were new at what you were doing. Yeah. And even I do recall hearing those numbers and kind of going, wow, that kind of hurts her. We need to do better too. All of us need to do better. And I think some of what you've said with changing the stats and changing things, it's like there's so many opportunities for foster youth, and yet in order for them to access and believe that they can do it, they still need someone to hold their hand and help them, don't they?
Absolutely. And I remember when we talked about that at the beginning, I said, if you don't talk about the problem, nobody wants to be a part of the solution. And so it's really not just a social work issue. It's a community issue. And so really what Bakersfield Angels allows is for everyday ordinary people in the community that maybe didn't go to school for social work or maybe aren't willing to open their home to foster care, that every single person can play a role. And like you said, we're better together. And so collaboration, if we all link arms to propel these youth forward, I just believe that we can change our city's future. I say all the time, if you change a child's life, you change a city's future. And that's the onus really is on every single person in the community. And so one of our taglines is that not everyone is called to foster and not everyone is called to adopt, but everyone could do something and everyone should. Yeah, this is a collective community issue. And if we want our future to look better, our homeless population to decrease, our prison population, just the future of all of our children depend on how we're raising the children that belong to us as a community.
Yeah, you're right. And I mean, you've done things in a really creative way to get people involved that probably would not have otherwise. Like some of the fundraisers that you've had. Tell us about a couple of those that you've done.
Yeah. So, I mean, basically we have two programs that allow everyday people to get involved. And the commitment, like I said, is not the same as the commitment of opening your home to foster care. And we actually, the fun thing is we have a lot of people that start their volunteer journey with us with the end goal of fostering. But they're like, we just want to dip our toe in the water, see if we, see if this is for us. And I was just telling my staff today, I dream of the day when we are bringing really healthy, great resource parents to DHS because of their experience with us and saying, you know what, I want to get even deeper involved. And so our programs, it's not the same sort of commitment. So in Lovebox, we match volunteers with a local foster family, which you guys call resource families, but and they just agree to walk alongside them on their journey for a 1 year at a time commitment. It's a once a month commitment where you agree to show up in ways that they find helpful. So it's not a one size fits all. So maybe for a super busy resource family, it looks like bringing a hot dinner over after a long day at court. Or maybe it looks like taking the kiddos to the park so mom and dad can go on a date. Maybe it looks like taking the kids to a hockey game because they've never experienced that. And so it's really specific to what that family needs, what they find. We've partnered with a church here in town, The Bridge. They offer parent night outs for our resource families. So that allows the church to get involved. Yes.
Yeah,
they're a hit.
That.
Parent night out. So
I bet.
There's never a lack. And they do such a great job. I mean, those kids have a blast. And so the parents feel like, it feels good to leave them with volunteers they know have been live scanned and background checked and all of that.
That's
because
good.
often they don't get date nights.
Right.
And so that's the number one thing we hear is just like, we
Wow.
would just love some time away. And what we know is 50% of homes will close within the first year of opening to foster care because they feel overwhelmed and under-supported. Now, that's not a DHS issue. That's a community issue. Is like, how can we support the people that are saying yes? So as one of the moms said last night when we were filming her, is so we can just hang on just a little while longer. We want to keep that placement stability at the front. And then the other program is Dare to Dream. And that's a one-on-one mentorship program where we match what I would say a healthy, compassionate adult in our community with a youth between the ages of 11 and 24. And they become that youth's person. It's their champion, their advocate, their role model, but they're in their life for nothing more than just to cheer them on and show up and be their available person to text when they fail a test or to call and say, will you come to my soccer game? And, I call it kind of the fun aunt or uncle. Mm-hmm. And that's a twice a month commitment. Okay. And we have 80 youth currently matched in our Dare to Dream program. And it's really great.
How do you, so say someone calls you and says, I'm interested in the Love Box. Yes. Is the Love Box an actual box that you give people or is it just what you call the program? I don't know.
If I could rename it, I wouldn't name it that. But it did start that way. And Austin, when they piloted the program, it was a box of things that were essential. They piloted the program with a seasoned foster mom that only took in teenage boys. And so she had a lot of needs for snacks. They eat you out of the home and toiletries and all of those things. So that's how they started. But what we realized, I tell people all the time, we are not a transactional organization. We're relational. But when you're in relationship with people, you do meet practical needs.
Absolutely.
That's what it looks like. So no, oftentimes we encourage our Love Box groups to bring a box 4 times a year.
Okay.
And they're the kind of times that you would do it for your grandkids or your kids. So Easter, Halloween with, costumes, Christmas makes sense. And then a summertime, just a summer fun box of places to go, like maybe with gift cards to Doors or to the Boulevard, just to give them.
But it's more about a relationship.
It's
really.
100% about a relationship.
And so the Love Box is once a month. You said they get together. Okay,
it's a once a month commitment, and we encourage our Love Box groups to be anywhere between 2 to 6 adults, so that you have each other to do it together. So we have lots of small groups from churches, co-workers, just friends that are doing life together. We have tennis club that does it. We have some local companies that do it because they're already at work together. And so
it's great unity building.
It's fantastic.
How do you link up those groups with the family?
Yeah. So we get a referral over for a family. They self-refer and say, hey, we'd love some support on our journey.
So foster families contact the Bakersfield Angels.
Yes.
Awesome.
So they can go on our website, bakersfieldangels.org, and they can refer themselves over.
Okay.
We have 40 families currently matched in our Love Box program, but we have 40 families waiting to be matched. And so right now we're at a volunteer deficit.
Okay.
So we need more volunteers. Okay. So I'm always on the circuit, going to Rotary clubs and churches and wherever I can, just to say, hey, this is a way that you can get involved. And the beautiful thing is I have 4 kids of my own. And when they were younger, I always wanted to be able to do community outreach with them, but it was like limited. So I did some work with flood ministries, with the homeless population, so that my kids could get involved. But Love Box is a great way for families. We match very intentionally. So let's say you're a mama and you have 8, 6, and 4-year-old child, and you're like, I really would love to be matched with a foster family that has kids the same ages, so we can do park dates and, do things together. So we match really intentionally. Okay. So that, and I was just we had our volunteer appreciation event last night, and I was talking to one of our Love Box leaders, and she said, my kids, it's been so great for them because they get to go hang out and have fun with these kids, and then we get to debrief on the way home, like, so that they develop compassion, like, hey, these kiddos maybe aren't staying with their mom and dad tonight. And so you want to be really extra kind to them. And so it's just a way.
It's bringing awareness to kids maybe who haven't enough, right? Absolutely. To understand that there's needs out there that they don't face. I think that's really good training.
Changing the lens through which everybody in our community sees foster care is the starting point, instead of people come in with preconceived notions. But when you get up close to anyone, not just foster care, those all kind of fall away. And so it's really just an invitation for people to get a little closer.
I'm your co-host Antoinette, and I'm interrupting today's podcast to highlight a special opportunity on behalf of our Job Fest team. Job Fest chapter is happening on May 18th from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. at the CAPK Youth Center. For more information, head to jobfestkern.com. If you'd like to join our team here at DHS, head to kerncounty.com under the Careers tab. Thank you for listening, and now back to the podcast.
So the Love Box is one avenue, and then the other one is the mentoring program.
Yes, that's Dare to Dream.
Dare to Dream. And that one is one-on-one.
One-on-one.
Right? Okay. And so if a person who's interested, they call the Bakersfield Angels, and then do you have a training for them?
Yes.
Okay. What does that look like?
So when somebody signs up to be a volunteer in either program, there's an onboarding process. So first we do a 30-minute Zoom with them just to kind of say, do you understand what we're asking? All of that. And then there's a whole rigmarole of things they have to do. But it's good. It's how we vet. So submit some references, fill out some different applications, and then they go through some trauma training and some ACEs training, because it's very important that they understand, walking alongside kids in general is hard. I've raised 4 of them, but walking alongside kids from hard places takes some understanding.
I'm glad
there's a book that we recommend for all of our mentors to read called What Happened to You? And it really changes the narrative from ever asking somebody what's wrong with you to what's happened to you. And so we train them, we background check, live scan, that whole process. And then when they're finally cleared, then we match. And like I said, in Dare to Dream, just like in Love Box, it's a very intentional match. So we have one program director that onboards all of our mentors and all of our youth. She goes and meets every youth when they're referred over. And so it's kind of like, you remember Chuck Woolery on, what was that called?
The Gong Show? Was it
what
the Gong
it?
Show? Or
no, the dating one, Love Connection.
Oh, okay.
So it's kind of like that. Like she matches them very intentionally. And the other thing is we try to match youth with what they want in a mentor. So if we have an African-American youth and male youth, and he really wants an African-American male mentor figure, we work really hard for that, because we want these youth to be able to see who they could become in 5, 10, 15 years. And it matters that you look at somebody that looks like you.
Absolutely.
And so we have a lot of Hispanic mentors, a lot of African-American, and it's really magical watching these matches. When they first happen, it's as awkward as a blind date, right? You're just like, hey, we put you together. And they kind of learn. And we give them a framework with building rapport. But then just a few months in, today, we were just going case by case of each of these 80 youth. And all I can think of is like, who was their person 3 months ago? Who was coming to their tennis tournaments? Because Dare to Dream, it's even different than Lovebox because these youth are 11 to 24. So a lot of them have aged out. They're living independently. So this mentor is helping them get their documents, get their driver's license, sign a lease, car pay insurance, all the things that my own kids couldn't do without me. You know, I mean, I have a 24-year-old daughter who'll still call me and say, I got a recall on my car. What do I do? So to expect that these kids would ever be a success on their own, that we know that's not true. And even the younger ones that are matched younger is in the 2 years, 7 months that we've had our programs, we've probably celebrated around 45 adoptions, which is incredible. Forever Families is incredible. But only 2 of those have been over the age of 12.
Yeah.
So what we know in Dare to Dream, when these youth are matched, this is their person. And when they bounce from home to home, as unfortunately they do oftentimes, their mentor gets to follow them. And so we were just talking about 3 of our youth that are on the run right now, but we're like, as soon as they land somewhere, the first person they're going to reach out to is their mentor. And that's the stability and the consistency that every kid needs to know they're not disposable, regardless of any choice that they make, that they're going to keep showing up.
And I know you were telling me a little bit, I love just the personal relationship building and the way that you find people to help. And it sounds like, and I've noticed that the people that are drawn to want to help do have means and they're successful, which they can then, provide that role model, which is so important.
Well, we just went to a training that the Homeless Collaborative put on Monday called COPE, which was a cost of poverty experience. But it was like a simulation of walking through a month in somebody's life that's living a life of poverty, like trying to cash your unemployment check and, pay your rent, do all the things. And first of all, thinking of our youth even trying to navigate that on their own, I was very frustrated and, felt devalued and all of the things. And so knowing that they have a mentor to walk alongside, but they said at the end, I just loved it so much that they said, we don't need more programs, we need more people. And I'm like, bingo, that is it. Because what we know is relationships heal trauma. And like I told our volunteers last night, nonprofits don't fix issues in the community. People do, volunteers do. And so it's going to take everybody stepping up to the plate and saying, hey, what little thing can I do? But if collectively, imagine if 400,000 people said, what can I do for our foster care community? We completely transform it.
Absolutely. The whole world, the whole nation. And one of the other things we were chatting about before we started is the fact that, our children who grew up having pictures, we have photo albums, we have things to look back and go, look what I look like when I was 5 or whatever. And many times foster youth have things on their phones and maybe their phone gets lost and so they don't have anything. And so you were telling me about another thing you're doing. Talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So it started last year, I think in September, as an idea just to give our youth an opportunity to amplify their voice. I think so often they feel unheard, unseen, unvalued. And so we invited them to come in our office to film. And we had 17 youth that said, yeah, I want to tell my story. Like I have a story to tell. And we videoed them and we were talking to our videographer and I'm like, just what you were saying is these kids bounce. Oftentimes they don't keep the same phone. We laminate their mentor's phone number and their case manager. So if they move, they can still contact them because that's how we were losing them. And, but so the beauty is we have now started saving these videos of these youth, and also the mentors have photo albums. So they share with us. So we have a shared photo album of every youth in our programs just for us privately. So if a youth moves, we're like, here's all the pictures that we have of you with your mentor, going Memories. To the boulevard, going to play miniature golf, like doing all the fun things so that they have the same memories that our kids have. And, so often a picture is what brings a memory back.
It's true.
You can look at it and you're like, oh, I'm right back there.
Right.
Yeah.
I love that. I think that's such an important part of growth. And like you said, healing trauma relationally. Is there any particular story that you feel like you'd like to share? I know it's hard because you've probably got a lot. Just as a story where you maybe saw something amazing happen in a child's life.
Well, I'll share a story that's real fresh for me. So my board, I require everybody on my board to also volunteer in our programs because I think it's so important that we stay close to the fire. And so my board president, back in probably September, October, we matched her with a youth just in time to be matched in Dare to Dream. She was about to turn 24. So we're like, let's prioritize her and get her a person. She already had 3 children of her own that had been removed from her home. So her kids were in foster care, and she was pregnant with her 4th. And the reason for the removal is a lot of times, like the stories we know, they're trying to get it together, and there's just certain things, people that they're associated with, whatever. And
so this is the 24-year-old.
This is the
that had
23-year-old who has 3 children
okay.
already,
because she had been in foster care herself, and so the cycle continues.
Kids, yes.
Okay, got it.
So anyways, she's pregnant with her 4th, and she was matched with our board president, and we threw her a baby shower and celebrated it like it was the biggest deal in the world. And the whole board and staff came, and her probation officer came, and her social worker from DHS came. And we just really celebrated her, and her 3 kiddos were there with her aunt. But anyways, long story short, when she went to deliver, her case manager was in the room with her as she delivered her baby. And the reason her baby wasn't taken is because her mentor and her case manager were there. And they said, because we know you have support now, like we're going to give you a chance. And just a month ago, she got all 3 of her other kids back.
Wow.
And tomorrow we're moving her into a new 3-bedroom house that her mentor helped her get her new lease, jump through all the hoops. And there is 0 chance that would have happened without the relentless support of her mentor and case manager that are like, huge. We're going to drive you. And this whole time that she still doesn't have her license, her mentor has been taking her 5-year-old to kindergarten every day so that she can keep placement till she moves close enough so that she can walk him to school. It's a beautiful story.
So 4 lives right there changed.
Right there.
That is awesome.
That's
actually more than 4 because of your president doing all of that.
And the mom. So 5 lives.
Wow.
And our lives are changing. See, that's the thing. We're not a religious organization, but I will tell you this. Randy Martin from Covenant Coffee told me once that Jesus came to comfort the afflicted and afflict the comfortable. And that is the beautiful thing of Bakersfield Angels is I can't ever decide what gets me more emotional is watching these deserving youth be comforted in their affliction or watching the comfortable people of Bakersfield, which includes myself, being afflicted, because once you've seen it, you can't unsee it. And it just changes the way you see everything. I'll share a quick story. I know I talk a whole lot, but
it's good stuff.
Last year at our fundraiser, I was sharing about statistics, and we shared some specific stories of youth, kind of like I did, and talked about the homeless population, that 50% had spent time in foster care. And I said, so many of you have driven past a McDonald's where maybe an 18-year-old boy is sitting outside with a sign that says, "We'll work for food." And your immediate thought has been, get a job. Like, you're able-bodied. Like, what are you sitting out here with a sign for? And I said, but now that my lens has been taken off, what I think is like, are you going to let him take a shower at your house? Are you going to help him write a resume? Are you going to help him be brave and walk in with him and ask for an application? Because if you're not, I'm not interested in your opinion, because unless you're in the arena getting your butt kicked on behalf of these kids, you're just a bystander. And so I told this story. Well, anyways, I asked at the end for people to raise their paddle in support of a youth in our programs. And one gentleman and his wife raised their paddle for 7 kids. So it was a big donation. And so I called him the next week to thank him. And I said, I thank you so much. And he said, well, 7's our lucky number. That's why we picked it. And he said, but I want to tell you something. The next day after the fundraiser, I was driving downtown and a homeless person walked in front of me. And all I could think of is, I wonder if he'd spent time in foster care. And he said, and then I just thought I should have done 10. And that to me is afflicting the comfortable, just letting people go, like put away your preconceived notions. These kids have every odd stacked against them through no fault of their own. And it is our job, their words of the state, it is our job to do better by them. And so I'm just looking for compassionate people. Again, with COPE, it said compassion, connection, and influence. Almost everybody listening to this podcast has those 3 things. And how are you leveraging it for somebody else to turn their life around and flip the script and change the narrative that they're disposable and that their life doesn't matter?
You know what's so good about that, Allison, is that so many of us do see needs all around us and we don't know what to do. I mean, we saw a homeless lady walking down the street yesterday, and she was, screaming out loud, and it's a little scary. Sometimes you don't necessarily want to walk up to a person, but these are avenues that people can take with the Bakersfield Angels.
Absolutely.
They can, they don't have to foster adopt necessarily. They can call you and get involved. And so I just, I hope if you're listening and you do want to make a difference in not only our own community, but the homeless community, that you do get involved with Bakersfield Angels. And your website is bakersfieldangels.com?
Bakersfieldangels.org.
Yes. Okay, bakersfieldangels.org. And it's a beautiful website, a lot of information. You can easily connect.
And we're also on social media. So Instagram and Facebook, we do a really good job of telling our story there, because often we have really good intentions. We listen to a podcast like this and we think, I'm going to get involved. And then life gets busy.
Right.
So if you follow us, we'll just hound you, because we'll just keep showing up, and you'll be like, I got to do the thing. So I tell people all the time, the difference between good intentions and actually what you value and find important is action.
That's true.
Like actually doing the thing. That's what we're looking for. And I'll end with a quote that I heard. When you hear about all these statistics, and I told you I did a lot of work with the homeless population, and I believe so much still in that work. But Desmond Tutu, there's a quote by Desmond Tutu, who's a Nobel Peace Prize winner. And he said, there comes a point when we got to quit pulling people out of the river, and we have to travel upstream and find out why they're falling in. And the reality is, for so many of the major social issues in Kern County, it's foster care, and so if we all throw our net out and, let's go upstream, so that we don't have to watch the lady walking across the street, probably struggling with schizophrenia and mental illness and all of those things. Like, if we can get them when they're younger and kind of meet them at the crossroads, that we can actually still have a chance of changing the trajectory of their life.
Absolutely. I love that. And so May is Foster Care Awareness Month. And so thank you so much for being our guest. And I know you're going to join us at the Board of Supervisors in May. And so we will be continuing to put out messaging about foster youth and the needs and how people can get involved and help change the numbers, change the stats. And so we thank you so much for being our guest today on this podcast.
I'm so grateful. Thank you for your partnership. We're so grateful for everything DHS does for our youth.
I'm your co-host, Paula Hernandez, and welcome to today's Mindful Minute. Today we will be talking about mindfulness cards. I recently stumbled across this find on Amazon called the mindfulness cards. It's simply a deck filled with 50 prompts that give you ideas of ways to practice mindfulness. Some examples say, give yourself 3 affirmations. Another one says, take 5 minutes to do absolutely nothing. I find these so genius because if you're like me, sometimes you need a little push to follow through with things. And this is a great way to push yourself to step away from your computer at work or TV at home and go for a walk. There are so many options on Amazon that you can choose from, so pick the deck that best fits you. This has been your Mindful Minute.
Thank you for joining us for the Heartbeat of Human Services podcast today. We hope you'll join us next time.